So I would love today, I think most of us on the call know each other. So I would love to keep this pretty casual today and really have more of a conversation with you than just kind of present all of these numbers and everything. But what our goal is for this morning is to provide you with an update. We're going to kind of zoom out at first and do kind of a statewide snapshot. And then we will kind of zoom in into Obion County specifically, what your tnAchieves, Tennessee Promise data looks like. I think most of you know this, but when we launched Tennessee Promise back in 2015, it was written in the legislation that the county executive or the county mayor appoints a group that we call the Local Advisory Council to really do a couple things for us. Back in those early days, it was to help us navigate the county, tell us where the pockets of active people are, really a big help in our mentoring program. Fortunately, we had been to Obion County a couple times. Mr. Boyd had asked us to come out there, and with Randy's family being from there, Obion County wasn't brand new to us, but a lot of the communities that we were working in were. And then the second thing is really to keep you updated on the progress and also the challenges. So what you're going to see in here today is going to be mostly good news, but there's some not so great news that we're going to talk about too. And so we want to be really transparent and open with you and get your feedback, because we know that what is working in Obion County may not work in Dyer County, may not work in Shelby County. And so we want to make sure that we're serving your students to the best of our ability. So we'll hop in here real quick and start working through some of this data. Quick reminder who we are. We're the 501c3 nonprofit that operates Tennessee Promise in 90 of the 95 counties. We have worked with more than 440,000 students and 71,000 volunteers since we launched in Knox County in 2008, working with a little over 600 high schools and 67 colleges across Tennessee. This next slide kind of dives into what we call the core components of tnAchieves. The first three have really been with us since this was just an idea on a whiteboard in Mayor Ragsdale's office in Knoxville. So the Last Dollar Scholarship, which is now provided by the state in the form of Tennessee Promise, allowing students to go to our 13 community colleges, 27 Tennessee colleges of applied technology, and about 27 four-year universities, tuition free. Each student in the 90 counties that we serve is paired with a volunteer mentor that is checking in and providing guidance while students are transitioning from high school to college. And we'll talk a little bit more about that here in a few minutes. And then our students get back 8 hours of community service every semester. When we launched the program in Knoxville, it was completely privately funded. So donors were paying for college, volunteers were making sure students were successful. And so we thought it was really important that our students continue that tradition of giving back, and they still do to this day. One really exciting data point on the community service is we survey students after they do their community service when they're turning them in, and 96% of them tell us that they enjoy the hours that they're completing. So that's something that we were really excited to see this year. A couple of things that we have added over the last 13 years. We now offer 2 robust summer programs, one of which is the Summer Bridge program that we operate at the 13 community colleges, actually at 15 sites. So for some of those community colleges that have larger service areas, we offer a couple. Really exciting news to share there. So these are students that are not testing into college level coursework in math, reading, or English. Some form of those classes, maybe one, maybe all three, had a 89% success rate this year. So it's a 3-week program. They come every day, do an hour of reading, an hour of writing, an hour of math. At the end of the 3 weeks this year, 89% of them either tested into college level coursework or improved their test scores. And in a year where we know students were in and out of the class a lot to finish up their high school careers, that is probably more important than ever. And then we run something called the Summer Institute in the urban core of Memphis. We had 29 students complete that program this year. It is a 6-week program. It's kind of the bridge program on steroids. And it's actually credit bearing. So all 29 of these students required all 3 learning support courses, reading, writing, and math. And all 29 of them, so they knock out all their learning support courses, 9 hours of that. And we use the co-requisite model. They can actually earn up to 9 hours of college credit. And this year, all 29 of them completed all of the learning support classes and earned all 9 hours of college credit. So a 100% success rate in that program this year. So really excited about that program, and hopefully we can start to grow it outside of Memphis this year. And then the last portion of this slide here is our new, I say new, it feels new. We've been doing this for what, Chastity, 2 or 3 years now. Our complete model, which coaches our most at-risk students in Tennessee. So what we have found 7 years into this Tennessee Promise experiment now is that unfortunately, our low-income students in Tennessee, even though it's tuition free, still are not going to college at rates as high as their peers. And when they go, they don't graduate at rates as high as their peers. So we have a team now, Chastity is one of them, that are coaching our most at-risk students. So proactively reaching out, and we have taken our group of students that were achieving at some of the lowest rates are now actually outpacing the general population in terms of fall-to-fall retention. So we don't have a graduation rate on that one quite yet, but it is showing a lot of promise and hoping to continue to grow that program. A few more slides here on our reach. So I mentioned that we're working in 90 counties, 74 of which are classified as rural, 35 of which are classified as at risk or distressed. Both of those designations come from the Department of Economic and Community Development, working in 601 high schools across the state. That is all of the public, private, and homeschool cooperatives in those 90 counties. Mentioned 67 colleges that we're working with. And then you can see the breakdown of where they attend. Vast majority of which are enrolling at the community college. It's a pretty even split there between the TCATs and the four-year colleges. No surprise, I don't think, about the community college number there, but would certainly love to see more students exercise that TCAT option because we do know that their success rates are so high there. A few more things to kind of discuss our reach here. So working with more than 60,000 students annually. A couple of years ago, we had 64,000 students apply for Tennessee Promise. Took a little bit of a backwards tick this past year. You're going to see some of what I would call we don't call it this, but I'd call it the COVID impact slides are coming up here in a few minutes. And you're going to see that unfortunately, some of our numbers are going backwards a little bit, and applications went down just a touch this past year. 89% of all high school seniors in the state of Tennessee go through the tnAchieves program. So when you factor in the AIRS Foundation, well over 90% of students across the state are applying for Tennessee Promise, but 89% of all seniors in Tennessee go through the tnAchieves program. 78% of all first-time full-time freshmen at the community college are tnAchieves students. And a number that we're really proud of, 86% of all community college graduates in Tennessee have gone through our program. So you can see that our scope has, over the last 7 years, become very, very large. For those of us that have been with the program since we were working with 490 students in Knoxville, I don't think that we ever would have believed that we would have gotten here, but here we are, and we're really excited to continue digging in across the state. A couple of other little demographic points here. So 56% of students eligible for federal financial aid. That means they're eligible for a Pell Grant, which means they're coming from a low income household. 40% of the students are self-reporting that they are the first in their family to go to college. This is this number kind of surprises me every year. So first, it's self-reported. Two, I don't think there's a really good definition of what it means to be a first-generation college student. And when you're looking that only about 40 to 44% of adults in Tennessee have a post-secondary credential, the fact that only 40% of the next generation is reporting that their first generation probably skews a little low, probably a little bit higher than that. But that's what they're telling us on their FAFSA. And then 51% of students are majoring in either a health or STEM related field, which are the most in-demand fields across Tennessee. So Lindsay, I'm sure you know this data, but what this means is that students are getting credentials that will make them desirable for employers. They're getting credentials in in-demand fields, which means they will find meaningful employment when they graduate. So that's a number that we were really excited to see. We pulled that just recently. At the bottom here, you see the cost, $32 million in scholarship cost annually. That comes out to about $1,100 per student. And then Tennessee Achieves privately funded operating on a $2.5 million budget annually. So let's take a look at some of your local data here. First thing that jumps out at me is your FAFSA filing rate. You guys continue to outpace the state. I think that you have every single year. So last year, we did see a little bit of a dip. We were at 90% statewide FAFSA filing rate the year before, 86% this year statewide, but Obion County continues to outpace the state. I think what we saw here is with students being in and out of schools statewide, specifically Nashville and Memphis, students were not in schools. It made it really hard for those counselors to identify the students that hadn't completed a FAFSA, where as previously they could go, pull them out of class. And there are just challenges with students not physically being in the building. So hopefully now that all the students are back in the building this year, we'll get that number up. Community service, Randy tells us that as a organization, the almost 3.4 million hours of community service our students have completed makes us the largest community service organization in the state. No one has called us on that yet. We don't know if it's true, but we're going to keep running with it until someone tells us otherwise. And you see almost 10,000 hours completed in Obion County. Hopefully you're seeing some of that work in your local schools, with your local nonprofits, through the chamber. Hopefully you're seeing some of that impact there locally. Probably our most important slide today. So what are our students in Obion County doing once they are enrolled? So you see this application, enrollment, and retention data is all from 2019. Your graduation rate is from your class of 2017. 317 students applied in Obion County, 63 of which enrolled with Tennessee Promise. I'll tell you that Obion County typically has one of the lower percentages in terms of students that apply and then actually go on to use Tennessee Promise. I think that is a direct correlation to being located so close to UT Martin. We see the same thing in Weakley County. Weakley and Obion County typically have we got kind of the uptake rate in terms of percentage of students that apply and then go to college using Tennessee Promise. We're gonna look at your college going rate here in a few minutes. You're gonna see it's not alarming. So nothing to be too worried about there. Your retention rate, so these are your students that start and come back for their sophomore year, right on pace with the state average there, 2/3 of them. And then the really exciting news is you are significantly outpacing the state in terms of your 3-year graduation rate. I think you probably have I don't have this number handy, so you have probably a pretty decent amount of your students exercising a TCAT option, which usually helps that rate. But for a county that is not located very near a community college campus, it's really, really strong to see. I know you have some classes taught locally, but that 46% 3-year graduation rate is one of the highest in the state. So really exciting news for Obion County students there. Take a look at some of our statewide outcomes. So we've got a snapshot for you of what our first-time full-time freshmen, any first-time full-time freshmen at community college. So these are not just the Tennessee Achieves population here. First-year retention rate of 53% versus Tennessee Achieves students at 67%. So students that go to college enrolled in an eligible institution receiving support from Tennessee Achieves. And then you see 74% of Tennessee Achieves students at any college. So these are students that do exercise the UT Martin, Memphis, MTSU, UT route. They're not receiving the Tennessee Promise Scholarship, but they were given a mentor. We helped them with FAFSA. They received all of our reminders. So we still touch those students in some way with really high first-year retention rate there. And then you see our 6-year graduation rate of 51% of Tennessee Achieves students that start at community colleges are graduating in 6 years versus 35% of the general population. This number reflects a couple of things. This is your students that started the community college and earn their associate's degree and go straight into the workforce. These are also your students that go to Dyersburg State for a year, knock out their core classes, and then transfer to Martin, Memphis, wherever it may be, and earn a bachelor's degree without necessarily earning that associate's degree. It is, I think, pretty challenging to celebrate 51%, but when we started tnAchieves 13 years ago, the community college graduation rate was about 13%. So to have moved the needle this much in 12 or 13 years is really promising. So what are we doing to impact these student outcomes? A few things that you see on the side of the screen here. We already talked about the success rate of the summer programs, but additionally, the students that go through the summer programs are more successful once they start college, increasing their first year retention by about 34%. Students that are in that complete coaching model that we mentioned earlier increased their first year retention by 23%. And then we have a brand new program called Knox Promise. This is funded by a private donation in Knoxville, by a donor in Knoxville, which has expanded our complete coaching model. So every single Knox County student that enrolls eligible for Tennessee Promise is given a coach, regardless of income. And then we have what we call completion grant funding, what may be more familiar to you as emergency grant funding. Essentially, we are able to pay for students' books. We can pay for their travel expense. We can give them gas cards. We can help students with their grocery bills if they're food insecure. We've had some homeless students where we pay for their transitional housing. And it has shown a lot of promise just a couple of years into this. The Knox Promise cohort, the vast majority of those students go to Pellissippi State Community College in Knoxville. And the Knox Promise cohort was Pellissippi's highest retaining population of any student group throughout the pandemic so far. So we know that we're really making an impact with those. And that's something that we're working on taking statewide. The General Assembly passed some legislation this year. We have $250,000 for completion grants. That email went out to eligible students on Monday. So we're able to take this Knox Promise model, take a piece of it statewide. Students, we can pay for all those things I mentioned earlier. Not able to expand the coaching program yet, but these are things that we see as the next iteration of the work here at tnAchieves that we're working with our General Assembly on going forward. All of the information so far has been really positive, and then we get to this slide, and it's not so positive. So the first year of Tennessee Promise from 2014 to 2015, we increased the college going rate here by 4.6%, continued to climb over the next couple of years, plateaued over the last few years, and then COVID hit. And you can see we had an almost 5% drop in the state's college going rate, completely erased the gains that we have made since 2014. Unfortunately, Obion County seems to have been hit even harder. You are well outpacing the state average in terms of college going rate. You went from 5 points ahead to 1.5 points behind. So really concerning numbers here. This is a trend that we have seen in just about every single county. There's 2 or 3 counties that either remain steady or continue to increase, but something that we certainly want to dig in on, something that we're working really hard for this semester. Classes started this week, so hopefully we're starting to see those gains. We're going to try to get it back up. Early indication is that the college going rate's unfortunately going to remain pretty similar to what it did in 2020, just based on enrollment data. But we want to work really hard, get through this pandemic, and get us back up where we feel like we should be in that low to mid 60 range. What can you do to help us out? First, if you have never been a mentor with us before, we would love to have you. I think most of you have, but I'm going to run through these roles real quick. We ask our mentors to do 3 things to support our students. First is to be that task manager, keeping students on track, making sure that they're completing financial aid packages, that they're applying to the college, submitting those community service hours. Second thing is we say you're that trusted family resource, the person they can reach out to when they have questions, when they don't know what the next step is. They get a letter from financial aid and they don't know what it means. They've got someone that they can reach out to via email, phone, or text. And then finally, the piece that I think is the most important, I would certainly argue as we continue to navigate fairly uncertain times, that the encouragement piece is more important than ever. Just that, hey, it's tricky and it's challenging, and anyone who has ever been to college before struggles, right? Like I really struggled in the math class. Other students struggle writing papers. Other students are balancing working full-time and going to school full-time, and it just gets hard sometimes. And so to say that, hey, it gets hard and that's normal and you're going to feel this way, but we're going to go on this journey together, I think is usually the most important part of this, and in our current times certainly would argue that it is. Mentoring in 2022 is going to look a little different than it looks this year, which looks significantly different than it looked in the previous years. So if you mentored with us this year, you know that we launched tnAchieves Connect, which allows mentors to meet with students virtually in a platform that looks pretty similar to this. It also gave you an additional layer of tracking your students that you've never had before. So you were able to see in real time when students submitted their community service hours, when they applied to a college, when they enrolled in a college. You're getting that data as soon as we were getting that data, which we think is really beneficial. And what we've heard from our current mentors is that it is really beneficial. We have heard from our mentors. We surveyed everyone in the 2021 cohort a few weeks ago. 2/3 of our mentors told us they want an in-person option for 2022. So in 2022, you're going to still use Connect. It's going to be available for everyone, especially that tracking piece, I think, is so important. And then we're going to offer a couple of in-person options. One, we're going to host what we call open houses at college campuses around the state, where you can invite your students to come and meet with you. We'll block off 3 or 4 hours in a day. There will be a tnAchieves staff member there, no formal presentation, just to answer questions, facilitate conversations, be available. We're also hoping that our college staff will come, help students apply, complete their admissions files, be able to look and see where they are in the process and exactly what they need. We're then also going to encourage students and mentors to meet on their own. We know that this has been happening over the last 13 years. We haven't really encouraged it, but Randy takes his students to pizza every year. We had a mentor this summer who actually ran her own essentially summer bridge program in her front yard. She pulled a table out, put it under a big shade tree, and got her student prepared to go take the placement exam. So those meetings that we used to have back in the day where we came in the high school and it was really crowded and hot, we're not going to do those anymore. It's going to look a little bit different, but we do think that in-person option is important, all while trying to keep it at about a 1 hour a month time commitment. Locally, we need 48 mentors in Obion County. I pulled the numbers earlier. We had 49 last year, so we met the goal. Lindsay, your team at the chamber, Mr. Boyd, I know you go out and knock on the doors. It's a very, the Obion County model, I think, is the model that we love to see. It's very grassroots. It is super important that we continue to support students in this way, especially again, as we're navigating this pandemic. I'll also give a shout out to Obion County. Statewide, 71% of our mentors are female. Our student split is 50-50. Obion County last year was, I think we actually had one more male mentor than female mentor. The only county in the state that's anywhere close to 50-50 in terms of our mentor population being split. We actually were, I think, one man higher than woman last year. So that's really positive to see. The application deadline this year is December 3rd. You can hop on our website. You see the link there. New mentors, we'll do the new application. Returning, we'll do the quick one. A couple other things that we could use your help is just continuing to get this opportunity out into the community. If you have email blasts or newsletters, we have content that we can send to you that you can plug in. Also, if you just want to send it to your friends, family, coworkers, we can send you that and you can just forward along what we send to you. But any opportunity to share this with the community, I've been up to your Rotary Club many times and always enjoy coming to visit. We can come and do the big statewide picture, or we can come and do a very Obion County specific presentation. And then the application for students is open. So if you know a senior or a family with a senior, our school counselors do a wonderful job getting this opportunity to them. More than 90% of students across the state are applying, but never hurts to provide that last reminder. So that's all that I have for you for today. I think most of you have my contact information, but if not, here it is. I'm going to stop sharing my screen here in just a second and would love to answer any questions that you have or hear any comments, feedback.
I have question, and obviously you will send us information on mentor recruiting. I'm in Rotary and Brooke is now in Kiwanis. So if when you send us that, we can send it to our program chair and get you in the lineup, hopefully. So you can hit, if you don't mind, to hit both clubs.
Definitely not. We'll come and do it.
Kiwanis is on Thursdays at noon and Rotary's on Friday at noon, but I don't know what openings they have, so they may not be able to schedule them back to back, but we'd love to get you
Yeah.
on the list.
Always happy to come up there. Anytime. Anybody else? Mr. Boyd, you got any questions?
Yes, Graham. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
I'm actually babysitting and doing this morning. Hope the baby's not going too far. In the federal legislation, the funding for a two-year program after high school is part of that $3.5 trillion bill. How will that impact our funding here? Because it's going to be overlapping funding.
Honestly, I'm not sure. I don't know enough about that to know. It shouldn't impact any of the Tennessee Promise funding. Tennessee Promise is funded through excess lottery dollars. So I think we'll keep doing the work that we're doing. In terms of what that may inject into the colleges to build some additional programming, I'm not really sure. My guess is if you give 13 community colleges a pot of money, they'll come up with 13 different things, but I don't know.
Have you analyzed the drop-off from the context of perhaps I hear more and more students, because of the fact that it's not a traditional freshman year in college, taking a gap year to get a little more mature and to not miss the fun of college for those that want to go to college. And then also the possibility that with the availability of work and wages going up, that more and more students, I would think, would see this an opportunity to get some work experience, which I don't discount. I think having work experience, life experiences, enhance the student's ability to achieve in school. So this may not be a bad thing in reality.
John, I'll tell you what we're hearing anecdotally. So we don't have any data on it yet, right? It's just kind of now happening. What we're hearing anecdotally is that students are pursuing these job opportunities. There's a lot of job openings right now, and that they're filling jobs that otherwise maybe would not have been available to them. I think the potential downfall of that is that they're probably not jobs that are ultimately going to sustain them far into their careers. What may feel like a lot of money at 18 maybe doesn't feel like so much money 10 years down the road when you're married with a family. So that could be one potential pitfall of that. We are hearing from students some of the online, they're tired of the online classes, specifically with this last class, didn't want to go back into an online setting in college. So students from the class of 2020 that maintained their Tennessee Promise eligibility but did not enroll were actually allowed to enroll this year and remain eligible for Tennessee Promise. Statewide, I think we had about 500 students that went through the process. We don't know how many of them showed up this week. We'll know in a few weeks how many of those students actually went through. So hopefully we captured some of them, but certainly not enough to get our college going rate back up to that over 60% number. One of the other things I think has been really interesting, I heard this from Dr. Boyer, I saw her recently, and I've heard this from the president of Vol State, Dr. Faulkner. They've been surveying students, and students have been telling them that they wanted to get back on campus, in-person classes, and then this fall they have signed up for online classes. It seems to be the overwhelming majority of them have signed up for online classes. So that's a little bit perplexing. I guess maybe there's still just enough uncertainty around the pandemic that students feel safer that way. But trying to figure out, I think, exactly what is in their mind is tough. In terms of our students that start and drop out, we have tried to reach out to them and figure out what they're doing, and we just don't get much response. They're hard to get a hold of even when they're eligible and receiving support from us. They're really hard to get a hold of once there's no real carrot there. Chastity's working directly with students. I don't know if you have any insight to offer there that maybe I've missed.
Yeah, mostly. So when we generally communicate with these students, most of them say that they appreciate the flexibility that online classes offer, but they do miss that connectivity piece. by being in a, an actual classroom, but they are signing up for online classes because they had to work during the pandemic and then found that, virtual classes or virtual learning has been a little bit more conducive to their work schedule.
Thanks, Chastity. Anyone else?
Yes, Graham, there's a reason the numbers fall. I don't think it's a particular reason. I think it's an assortment of things. But one of the positive things that I've noticed this year, especially among my students, is they are a whole lot more mature than in the years past. The pandemic has, and the anxiety and so forth, they're making decisions that's a whole lot more mature. Hopefully that will help the numbers. What can we do in Obion County? What would be the number one thing that we can do in Obion County, Graham, from your observation?
I think right now for us, the biggest kind of higher ed emergency around COVID is the fact that students just aren't going. And so we really want to make sure that we're digging in on the mentoring piece. That is our best effort to ensure students are supported on their way into college. When we're talking about 60,000 plus students, our staff is bigger than it's ever been. There's 30 of us now, but 30 of us can't realistically support 60,000 students in a way that is going to be super meaningful. But our mentors working in small groups can. Now, once they're in college, and the number drops a little bit, we've got a team that can support those students, and the coaching model is showing a lot of promise. We have started a new program that is going to help students transfer. So 3 of our coaches have moved into a new role where we are going to identify students that are nearing the end of their community college careers, and we're going to help them transfer, because we've got some data that shows about 80% of students tell us their ultimate goal is to transfer to a 4-year university. Only about 15% of them do. So we're going to dig into that as well to try to provide more opportunities. But I think locally on the front end, we really want to try to solve this college going rate. Crisis feels like a strong word, but in relative, it's probably not a crisis, but in higher ed, that's our crisis right now, is that we need to get that college going rate back up, and anything we can do to have that local support system, I think, will be the most important.
One of the things that John said back there, and I see it as a problem, a young fella can come out of high school and be offered $5,000 or $6,000 sign-on bonus for a job. Now that's pretty enticing. And we have a lot of that here. Now they might not last 2 or 3 years on the job, but that $5,000 to $6,000 is attractive to them. So it could be
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, that's kind of what I was hitting at earlier, that, those signing bonuses, or the fact that, fast food restaurants right now are paying higher wages than they ever have. Will that last? Nobody probably knows the answer to that, but it's good money at 18. Again, at 28, it's probably not such great money. So we've got to, I think, reframe the way that we sell college to high school students, that the long-term outweighs the short-term, that you're going to be more financially stable further down the road, that when you're looking at people that have not been impacted in terms of employment during COVID, it's people with college degrees. And so we've got to find a way to frame that for high school students in a way that makes sense for them. Linda, I think you're muted. I can see that you're talking.
I'm really good with computers. I attended a meeting at the library about tnAchieves several years ago, and it was brought up about transportation was the main problem in Obion County.
Mm-hmm.
And then I heard that there was something available, but then I didn't see much about it that I could tell my mentees about. Do you know anything?
I wish Lindsay hadn't hopped off yet. I know she knows a lot more about it than I do. Mr. Boyd, you may know, or Lori, you may know something more about it, but you've got a local campus now, or a place where Dyersburg is teaching classes. Is that right? Or a TCAT teaching classes somewhere locally?
Yeah, we have Dyersburg Community College, and we've got TCAT New Bern, but it also offers classes in Union City.
And I think Dyersburg State has been offering courses down at the high school, Obion County Central High School.
Yeah, but if you're at South Fulton, if you don't have a car, you know,
There are places that do provide a means, like they would help them buy a bus ticket, like I guess the local transportation. And if they don't have gas money, there's places, it's like the workforce. I used to have a card for our region. Chastity, do you know? Because I'm struggling
Yeah,
with.
so I actually just dropped that in the chat. I know historically the Northwest Tennessee Human Resource Agency, I know that they were providing resources to students who had transportation issues getting back and forth to campus. So I haven't, checked recently, but I know at one point they were providing rides to students back and forth.
Do we have a
This
South one?
completion.
I'm sorry, Graham, go ahead.
No, go ahead, Lori. I'm sorry.
I was thinking I get stuff from SWTDD, but I don't really look at it that much. I'm always so busy at the high schools. But when I find out, Miss Linda, if you'll send me your email or put it in chat, I will definitely reach out to you and give you the
okay,
contact information for that.
okay.
And with this new completion grant funding, we're able to help students. It's not going to be enough money to pay for a car, but we are able to provide gas cards if they can show a need. The only students that qualify for that right now are our lowest income. Unfortunately, that pot of money is just not $250,000 a year for 30,000 college students when you include our sophomores, just isn't going to stretch very far. But if they can get in and they need it and they qualify, those are available for them this year. And that's going to be a program that if we can show that it's working, if we can take $250,000 and increase retention and graduation rates, even just a little bit, I think we really have a shot at going back to the General Assembly and increasing that pretty significantly.
Thank you.
All right. Well, thanks so much for coming. Obion County is one of those counties that the community support has always been exactly where we hoped it would be and even exceeds it. And so our program is really only as successful as the communities that we serve make it. And Obion does everything to make sure it's successful. So we really appreciate you being here and everything that you've done for us.
Thank you, Graham.
Thank you. Have a good rest of your day.
Enjoy your
Hopefully
day.
I'll see
Bye,
you
Chastity.
in
Hope
Obion
to
Thank
County
you.
soon.
Bye, Susan. Bye. Y'all will have a great day.
Bye.